we only have one mic today, so for those who are listening in, I sincerely apologize. Technical difficulties this morning, but we have to get this episode up.
Exactly. So thank you for tuning in with us this morning. Hey y'all. I know last time we were I know last time on our episode we talked about the dynamic of bringing our husbands into our family, but we didn't really get down to the nitty-gritty of how we met, our first impressions. So, let's go ahead and get into that today, shall we?
Shall we?
I guess we can take it back to when we were younger, growing up, and getting to the age of where you start noticing boys and liking boys. I know for me, I didn't really um, think about boys seriously even until later on in high school. Um, when I was younger and boys would like me, it was the biggest ick ever because it was I don't know, it's just that that weird feeling that like when a boy has a crush on you and you're like, oh, it's not a you thing. It's like I can't explain what that feeling is.
I call it unsettling.
Yeah, it's like it's like you know
It's
what?
like butterflies in your stomach. It's like butterflies in your stomach, but it's not butterflies.
Not the good kind of butterflies.
Yeah.
It's just I remember when I was young, I think I was in 5th grade or 6th grade, and a boy had asked me out. And I remember, see, we were good friends. And I remember, and his name was Chad, and he asked me out. And I remember as soon as he said, "Do you want to be my," I took off running. We were walking home after school. We had the same route, so we would walk home together. Then I go my way, he go his way. And ever since that day that he pulled that little stunt, I didn't walk with him ever again. Because I was like, why would you do that, Chad? Why would
Yeah.
One thing about Anna, like she said, she really didn't into high school. She literally really didn't. And growing up, guys would always like her. And Anna would literally just run away and like pretend like that conversation never happened. So,
Yes, it was very awkward.
Yes.
It was very awkward. And so I can't really articulate the feeling, but it's just like that unsettling feeling. And I remember running. I ran home, I ran across the field, and I was running to the backyard of my house. And he was like, I was saying, do you want to be my girlfriend? And I'm thinking, I heard you the first time you tried to say it. I'm running away. I don't know. It was just weird. So, yeah. So it took a while to actually pay attention to boys and actually think that, okay, yeah, they're cute, whatever. But that was high school for me. What about you guys?
High school? That was high school for you? Oh wow. I mean, for me, we all know. I'll I'll be the first one to let them know, hey, I'm Anna's sister, the second best in line. But for me, yeah. Um, pretty much on the same thing. Like if you're reciprocating, then I'm just gonna avoid at all costs.
Right. Yeah.
Kim?
for me, yeah, I didn't really, I was a big tomboy growing up. So, yeah, I didn't really wasn't really interested. I guess really until like junior high.
Yeah.
And then I started, noticing guys like and then but yeah, other than that, it just it wasn't really until junior high, like 8th, ninth grade year. Mhm.
So walk us through, because last episode we spoke about bringing our husbands into our family and introducing them to our family as our husbands and all of that. But walk us through your courtship with Deaki. With how did that begin? Um, time, place, everything. Tell us, girl.
So here's the details, guys. Listen in, listen in. So really, the first time that I met my husband, actually the first time I seen him was at this. We had my sister at that time. She was a senior, and my husband, he wasn't my boyfriend yet, but he was in 10th grade. So Sally was a senior, Jackie was in 10th grade, I was in 8th grade. So I remember we went to this program for the school. It was for the Polynesians. They had an award ceremony. So we went to it. And I remember they were playing musical chairs. And this was the first time I ever seen. This is the first time I ever seen my husband. Like I've never seen him before. So I remember they were playing musical chairs. I think I still remember the outfit that Sally was wearing. I think she was wearing like a gray, yeah, a pencil tight gray skirt with like this Barney top. Okay, it's not Barney, but the colors reminded me of Barney. It had like a little like splash of purple, a little splash of like turquoise, and it was just like blended. At that time back in the days, I don't know if y'all know, but when you had like the straight bangs and then like the little bump, yeah. So the little poof right here, and then the rest of the hair is down. That was Sally's outfit that day, and I remember they were playing musical chairs, and I remember seeing this guy. He was wearing cargo shorts, and he had like a button-up shirt, and he had long hair, and it was in four sections, and then it was braided. Because I remember when I seen him, I was like, "Who's this gangster?" I was like, "Who's this guy?" But my first impression, it was funny because my first impression was, I wasn't attracted. I wasn't like, I was like, I just saw him. I was like, oh, he's buff, and then I just went about my day. Anyways, yeah. So when I seen him, I just, that was my first impression. I just saw him. I was like, okay, yeah, like he's buff, but that was it. Nothing more, nothing less. Just that he was buff. They were playing musical chairs. Sally and him ended up being the last one, right, going around musical chairs. And when the music stopped, Sally, she was so proud because she thought she was going to win, right? Sally so confidently went and sat down to sit on the seat, and Decky pulled the seat so he could win, and she sat on the ground. So he pulled the seat, and then after that, I know he felt bad, but that was my first introduction to my husband at that time. I was like, wow. I was like, good job. I like you.
Oh, now it makes sense now.
No, but I remember when that happened, I couldn't stop laughing. I was like, wow, he just had to do it to Sally, huh? So, but that was the first time that I'd seen him. It was the first time I'd seen him. But the first time that I met him was actually at the church, and we were playing volleyball in the gym. And one of my friends that I already knew, one of his homeboys, came and brought him. He was like, hey, this is Decky. It's like, Decky Kim, we said hi. I was like, whatever. All I remember, he wore this cutoff shirt. And I just remember his muscles were popping. Okay. They were at this time, again, the only thing I thought was like, he's really buff and I guess kind of cute, but he's really buff. That's all I kept saying. And long story short, we were playing volleyball. He ended up hitting the ball. It hit his friend that brought him in the face, and then his friend's nose started bleeding. So then, of course, the buff, me thinking he's buff, he was really buff. But that was the first time we met, that we were introduced. And then after that, good old days, social media and Facebook just like started popping. Yeah. And at this time on Facebook, little kids like me at that time would write these statuses, like TBH. If you know TBH, you know what I'm talking about. Okay, cringe. But TBH, like to be honest, like the status, and I'll inbox you something about you, what I think about you. Here I am. And, an eighth grader, doing my little no, I think at this time I was in ninth grade. I was in ninth grade at this time. So this is a whole year after I seen him. I was in ninth grade when I finally met him. I did that status. He ended up liking it, right? So I was like, okay, let me just write like, hey, you're buff, and I think you're kind of cute. And that's just how the conversation started. It started off from that, and then we just started talking more, having a conversation, and then then we started dating. We started dating whenever I was ninth going into 10th, like the summer of that, and he was a senior. So yeah, we started our dating time. And during this time, oh my goodness, I thought I was so in love. I remember my 15th birthday, not my 15th, but 15th going to 16th. I'm a sophomore. He's a senior. I remember pulling up to my school, walking out, and where you drive to drop off the kids, there's like the cafeteria right here, and then like a little
Where you were playing patty cake?
yeah, the same location where Patty Cake was a couple years after with Anna. But it was that same location. I remember getting out my car, it's my birthday. I remember the day before I bought these jeans and like this top with like my first check that I got from my job, which was Sally was the manager. That's that job. And you see how everything just ties into it? Isn't that funny? And then I just remember coming into school and I'm just walking looking for my boyfriend because, he's there somewhere. And of course, I had some people come like, oh my gosh, I guess he wrote on his shirt, happy birthday to my baby, and put like an arrow to point where I was going to stand and like 16. So he made a shirt for me.
I'm tired of this story. So that's how you met your husband.
Yes.
All he had to do was come and show you his guns. And apparently you fell head over heels over this muscle man.
Yeah, not at first, but yes.
So, and now you guys have a lot of little buff children.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll come back to your story because I have a lot of questions for you and your little muscle man. But let's go ahead to Sally. Sally, walk us through the introduction of when you met your husband. Whenever you decided that that was your boyfriend, all that good stuff.
All right, so you guys know my story, or do you? Um, so Edward, we call him Kia. I met him in high school. Well, I didn't meet him. I knew of him in high school. I would see him in the hallways. I would always say hi. So, but that was about it. I knew that he hung out with a group of boys that went to our church, and he is the only guy out of the rest that I did not know who his parents were or really much about who he is.
He was a mysterious.
He was very mysterious. So, tip number one, be mysterious. But he was very mysterious. So, he never caught my eye. Well, I'm going to take that back. In high school, the only time he ever caught my eye was homecoming of 2009. Homecoming 2009. I hope I'm right with the dates. He was all dressed up, long hair, button-up shirt. He was escorting the one of the homecoming queen nominees. So he really caught my eye because he was all dressed up. But that was it. I remember thinking, ooh, okay. But that was it. I never thought about it again until I didn't really get to know him as a person until years after high school. I think this would have been like 3 to 4 years after I graduated high school. Then he hit me up on Snapchat one time. So going back to social media, this is how social media played a role in our love story. I was working, I had just gotten a second job at this time. I was working full-time for the airlines. And then I was also working part-time at a retail store. So supposedly, according to him, he saw me at this store and he had called out my name, but I didn't say hi because I was so caught up in being busy, just being a working girly, and no time to pay mind to anybody. And so he hit me up on Snapchat later on that night to say, hey, I came by. I was there with my siblings. I saw you and I tried to say hi, but you were like so busy you didn't say anything. I was like, oh, really? So the conversation carries on and we're just having a simple conversation back and forth. And then somehow he ends up owing me Starbucks. So that's where it really kind of just took off.
So that is the story of how Mr. Edward Guille entered into your life. So he definitely hit you up in your DMs and found a way to owe you Starbucks and found a way to put a ring on your finger, basically. Yeah. So, Kim, I know you're just dying to tell your story, but we'll. I'm just laughing because I never knew the story of how you first met him at the after school program and seeing him and him playing musical chairs with Sally,
Yep.
and then Sally losing, and Sally was like, "You will rue this day."
She's like, no,
Yes.
you did it.
So I
I
was
look
like-
cute. I did not. Whatever. I thought it was so hilarious because that scene was right there. I straight sat and the chair disappeared. I looked over. I was like, oh, oh, we see. I see who you are.
I think there's actually a picture on that page. I think that if we look, there's a picture that has you going around the musical chairs and there's Jackie. So I
Okay.
need to look for that picture.
Yeah, please do, because that would be so hilarious to see. But it's so funny how your husband was always around,
Yeah.
because even though you met him that year, it wasn't until like 2 years later that you finally began a relationship with him. And it's the same for you. Gia was always around. You guys had mutual friends, so you would always see him here and there.
That reminds me, because you said he was always around. I remember the boys at our church would invite him to like any youth outings we would have. And if you guys remember who I was, like just like I would please. There was one time we were going out for an event and we were all waiting for the boys. And then come to find out they were waiting on Gia.
Yeah.
And I remember I was like, why does he have to come? Why does he have to be here? Ooh.
Give me back the mic. Give me back the mic.
Yes.
Yes.
That's off tangent.
No, that makes sense, because you because well, we keep saying at church and they came to church. So you guys know, being in our family and with our parents so heavily involved in the ministry, a lot of our time was spent at church. And so for us to see a boy that we liked, it just so happened that they came to church through the youth that we had at church, that maybe their friends brought them, kind of like Deaki and Gia. So every time we would have outings, Gia would actually come on our outings because of the youth that we have in our church. They were mutual friends with him. They would invite him. And like you heard Sally say earlier, she was like, she would be the one to say, why is he coming? What does he need to come here for? Why? So it's so funny because, ma'am, that's your husband. Watch your mouth. Okay. But just like that story, I remember when we moved here, we were the first time we ever moved here to this city. We came to a church, so everything was new for us. I was 14. Oh, I was 14. Yeah. I was 14 when we had first moved here. It was our first time attending a church with Tongan people.
Yep.
Because we grew up, the way that we grew up in, even in the islands, we were always with other other cultures. And so when we moved here, when we were here in Texas and we moved to this city, we attended this church that had Tongan people. And I remember walking in on one of the first Wednesdays that we had, one of the first Bible study nights that we had here in Texas. And I remember walking in and seeing all the new faces and everyone seeing us, because we were the new people in town. And I remember seeing this kid that was sitting, his back was turned to me, so I didn't see his face. All I saw was the back of his hair. He was wearing a blue t-shirt and blue jeans, okay? Blue jean shorts. And if you know my husband, you know I'm talking about, blue jean shorts.
Damn, we're old. So
We're so old. But so I walked in and I saw this this guy just sitting there, and he's facing outside and he's sitting down. And I don't know, for some reason, it was that moment, which sounds crazy, but it was that moment. I didn't even see his face, but it was just that moment, me walking in and seeing the back of this guy. And I was thinking, for some reason, curious. I was just curious about him, because who is this guy? I've been to the church now maybe 2 or 3 times, and I have never seen this person. I've seen a lot of other kids that were there, but this was my first time seeing this person. And I remember seeing him get up, but then I saw his face, and he was walking around and, just hanging out. And I was immediately attracted. I was immediately curious about him. I wanted to know more about him. Where did you come from? Where did you go? Where do you go?
Where did you come from?
But I did. But at that time, I was so shy, and I never approached a guy ever. I was too shy for that. Are you kidding me? I will like you secretly to my death. But I did like him, and I remember later on that day, one of my best friends, who also attended the church, and she's still my best friend today. We were sitting in the car, and we were talking just like young girls do, teenage girls, and she said, "Let's play a game. I'll tell you who I have a crush on, and you tell me who you have a crush on." And I remember thinking like, okay, it's a fun game, because in my mind I'm like, I don't really know anyone here, so I'm just gonna find out things about you. But and she told me who she had a crush on, and then she asked me, "Who do you have a crush on?" And I remember not really having a crush on anyone. All I knew was that I was interested in that boy that I saw one time. At this point, I only saw him once. And I remember thinking, I don't really have a crush on anyone, trying to play it off. And she said, "Really? Not bentotai?" And I remember thinking, I remember thinking, wait, how did you know that? But she didn't know. She was just asking me questions, and it just so happened that she had the first guess correct. And so I said, you know what? I kind of do. I think I like him. And so I didn't know anything about him. So I asked her to tell me more about him. And so she did. She told me, well, he has this many siblings. He's actually the one that doesn't come to church, so you won't really see him often. And so when she said that, I already made up in my like, okay, yeah, I guess that was just, I, I saw him, I know about him, but I don't know if I'll see him around anymore. Well, that obviously changed. I This was at the time of MySpace. So so that's how old I am. So on MySpace, because we have mutual friends, of course, we would see each other's page on MySpace, and he was like a complete rebel. He was everything that I had on my list that I wanted to marry, and I wanted a husband to be like this, this, this. Oh, he was everything opposite of that. Completely opposite. The kind of person that I would never think that I would be attracted to. And I wanted someone who was, on the same path as me, somebody who was a good citizen, all of those things. And he was none of these things. If anything, he was the one kid that you tell your kids to stay away from. Okay? And maybe I was told that. I don't know. I remember him just being such a rebellious person, and for some reason that only grew the attraction that I had in him, just because it was like, wow, that guy's off limits. That's the guy I want. So we did talk here and there on MySpace. We never had a conversation where it was anything more than just regular conversation. So when we spoke on MySpace, we just said hi, bye, how are you, and whatever, what it do, whatever stupid little kids say at that time. And so because of those little times that we talked, my attraction did grow, because now I'm getting to know him. I'm seeing him the few times that he does come to church. And the times that he does come to church, he's like causing a disruption. So, it's even more, I want to know him more and more now. But long story short, our conversations turned into flirting, turned into, okay, let's try this thing out. Let's see where it goes. Obviously, this is where it went. We have 4 kids now. We're married, but that's how our story began. I have a question for you guys. Number 1. Well, I guess you already answered, because I was going to ask, was it love at first sight? And
No, mine definitely wasn't love at first sight. It was because then again, remember, my first impression was he's just buff, and that was it. It wasn't until I really got to know him and hang out with him, and then it became love. Yeah.
it was love at first tricep for you.
Yes, love at first tricep. That's what it was.
Bicep.
Mm.
Okay.
Yeah. if you knew my husband back then, this guy either has no shirt walking around or he has a cut off shirt just to show off his muscles because he was a strong man.
So, Sally, the same question for you. Well, we know because of your answer,
Oh
but
yeah, definitely not. Yeah, he was a hoodlum, or in my mind, I thought he was a I thought he was a hoodlum. Little did I know until I got to know him.
That's good to know. For me, if I'm being completely honest, and this sucks because if my husband sees this, he's gonna take this clip and show it to me every day. But for me, it was because this was the first boy that I actually liked enough that I wanted to be his girlfriend. I was like, okay, yeah, if he asked me out, I'll say yes. Because up until that point, there were so many times where someone, someone tries to ask you out, and I always had that icky feeling. But seeing Ben Valhalla, that was the first time that there was no icky feelings. If anything, it was the first time I really admired someone, and all the corny things that you do as a kid. That's the first guy's name I ever wrote, like on pen and paper with a heart, daydreaming, penny si money for holla, penny si money for holla. It just, so for me, yes, it's corny as heck. Yes, it was, because as soon as I saw him, you know that Adele song, Make You Feel My Love?
Yeah.
There's a part, the lyric in the song where it says, I've known it from the moment that we met. No doubt in my mind where you belong. Yeah. So when the first time I saw him, I was like, you know what? The target has been locked.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. Huh?
So yeah. So for me, yes, it was. Anyway, having a flashback right now to all those corny love letters and notes, and I don't know if kids do this these days, just with social media and everything, but we were in the generation where we were writing love notes back and forth, and decorating your notes and the bubble letters.
Them a certain way.
Yes,
When
when you open them. So yes, I have so many notes. That was our main form of communication before texting and all that, was writing notes to each other, and that's how we kept the relationship going. So for you guys, during your courtship, during your relationship, what were some of the ways, because we were young, so what were some of the ways that you spent time with your significant other, with when he was your boyfriend? What were some of the ways that you spent time together while growing your relationship?
Mine really was just at school. For that, as you know, I'm sophomore year. I'm sophomore. He's a senior. So it was really at school in between classes, and then maybe that's it at the most. Because I did have basketball practice, but right after basketball practice, my parents were there to pick me up. So other than like the passing period or lunchtime to hang out with him, that was really the time that we got to spend. It wasn't until after he left high school, because then we had a little break, and then of course we dated again in my junior year. He's out of high school, I'm in my junior year. Here he comes back, riding me, and at that time, just like Sally, I said I was done. Okay, I was like, I'm done. I'm not doing that again. Sure enough, here he comes. Hey, happy Thanksgiving. Hope you're doing good. I just wanted to check on you. Oh, you want to check on me? Okay, anyways, I fell for it. I definitely took the bullet and went along with his games.
The bait, not the bullet.
Oh my gosh, I took the bait. Okay.
The bullet, the gun. The guy got all the guns.
Okay. And then so then we, at that time when he already graduated, so I didn't see him in school. The time that I would get to see him was after my basketball practices, especially like on Wednesdays. Our church was right across the street, so I would walk to church. My church didn't start until like 6:30. My basketball practice would finish at like 5 o'clock, maybe 5:30. So I had like an hour time frame. So I remember he used to walk because he didn't have a car at this time. So he used his mighty two legs and walked all the way to come see me. And we would hang out together, and then I would go to church, and he would go home because he didn't go to church with me. He just went he went back home. But I think just the mystery of him, and not really a mystery, just the buffness of him and how he was, I think, yeah. But that was the times I got to see him.
Right. So you guys would make time, or he would make time with his mighty two legs, as you said,
Uh-huh.
and walk over to school to hang out with you after your basketball practice. And so you found time to
Yeah.
spend with him and just hang out.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that. Now we know why Dad had to wait for a long time after basketball practice to come pick you up. You need to get Sasa again. You get out. Okay, so moving on to Sally, because Sally, you got in this relationship with Gia when you were older. You were not in school, so you were old enough to actually hang out. So, well, how did? Right, exactly. So, how was that?
So, last when I talked, I shared that he owed me Starbucks. So supposedly he said that he brought me Starbucks to home and I was asleep, so I didn't answer the door. So then he took that as an opportunity to invite me out to go watch a movie together. The Hobbit or whatever, the final movie, like
yes,
that one had
that
just came out. Let's see, I was 21, about to be 22. That's about the time that we started this relationship or friendship, because it really was a friendship before I even fell in love with him.
Yeah.
We go out to watch a movie together, and I just remember thinking to myself, I was like, please don't hold my hand, please don't walk me to my car, because when I got to the movies, he already bought my ticket. So I was like, okay. That was our first time seeing each other after high school. So I didn't know how did he look now, but he came out. I remember he was wearing a black hoodie or sweater, and he had it over his head, and he walked over for us to walk together into the movies. And I was just looking at him. I was like, okay, still mysterious. I still don't know anything about this guy. But after the movie was done, he did walk me to my car. And I remember walking back to the car. I was like, please don't kiss me. Please don't kiss me. Please don't kiss me. I was like, we're just friends. We're just friends. I don't know if I was saying it because I really meant that, or I was trying to tell myself not to fall in love with him. But because remember, we've already conversed multiple times through text messages. So we're building this closeness. But then it turned into another time of getting together. And I'm telling myself, please don't fall in love. You told yourself that you're done with relationships, that you want to focus on school and all the plans that you have. And not only that, but he didn't check off everything on my list at that time. That was how it all started. I was older, so I got to go on dates. We ate all the time. So he was my kaipo partner. So, Anna, what did you guys do? You were young.
Yeah.
So, and our parents were really strict.
Yes.
And remember, Ben was a rebel. So, can you tell us how did you guys get to spend time together?
Yes. Being, especially with my father growing up in the ministry and being like the preacher's daughters and all of those things, Ben was the opposite of all of the things. And so us dating, especially being young, our parents were strict. My parents were strict for a reason. We're young. I was 15, 16. And so just being with Ben, all of the times that we hung out together obviously are going to be at my house. He during the span of our courtship is when he went to church the most, and obviously because it was for one reason, and that was because if we're gonna hang out, you're gonna have to come and see me, because there's no way I'm coming to see you. So lockdown life, please make yourself available, okay, because I'm here. So he would come to church all the time, and we would hang out, and we would talk for hours. At the in Where we lived at the time, there was under the street light. There was we would sit under the street light or on the porch, and we would talk for hours. I mean, talking for hours about everything and anything. And I feel like that's how we really got to know each other, was because I was locked. Because my parents were strict, so no, I was locked because my parents were strict. So it allowed us a chance to really get to know each other. So not only were we passing notes a million times a day at school when we would see each other, he would also come to the house and we would just hang out all day and talk. And in the times that he would come, he would also be getting to know my family more, my sisters. So there was a lot of times where he came over for dinner. um so we really got to know each other that way, and we got to really get to know each other before, so that we really got to know each other enough to know that this was it for us, that we wanted this to be a forever thing. So what is something that what is a trait or something that you admired in your significant other, something that stood out to you, and why?
A trait that stood out to me would be that um, he just made me feel comfortable. I felt so comfortable with him that I could share anything with him, and just know that he's coming from a loving place. He just made me feel safe. And that was one thing that I loved about him.
Were you in danger?
I wasn't in danger.
Kim was in danger, remember? That's why she got. Kim was in danger. That's why she got married. Remember?
Well, that was later on. That was another time. But at that time, he just made me feel home. Like when I was with him, it felt like home. It just felt like this.
Were you homeless?
Man, at this point, I was actually homeless. When I did run away, I was homeless. So
Love that for you. But that was the same for me. The trait that I really admire about Gia was just his level of patience, because I'm very impatient. So he definitely balanced out all the things that I don't like to say, like, you're the missing piece, or like you're because you're no, I'm yes,
Because only Jesus is that.
exactly. But he had a way of just, leveling me out, keeping me level headed, because we started as friends. And I love that our conversations were just so organic, and it was so refreshing for someone not to hit me up and already want to date me immediately. That's what made a difference. That's what made me fall in love with Gia, because we were getting to know each other. We did phone calls every night, texting all the time. And I just really admired his patience and his persistence.
For me, something that I really loved about Ben that made me know, okay, this is the one I want to have a relationship with, that I want him to be my boyfriend, all that good stuff. Was really, and it's everything about my story is corny, but it's really the way that he loved my little brother. Um, and because my little brother growing up with us, he's the only brother. He doesn't have brothers, and so growing up, and when you grow up and your youngest brother, you're always thinking, oh my goodness, they're so annoying, they're doing too much, they're getting in trouble, and all of these things. But even as my boyfriend, I remember seeing the way that my boyfriend at the time, Ben, the way that he reacted to my brother when my brother would, be annoying and just do little brother stuff. But that really, my heart just melted seeing the way that he was with my little brother, and seeing the way that he was, even with my parents. Because remember, like I said, he was such a rebellious person, and he was like an outlaw. He didn't follow any rules. He kind of did whatever he wanted to, but he cared about me enough that he came out to find me. He came out to church to be with me. He came and spoke to my parents, and did everything by the book, just because I asked him to. And I said, this thing matters to me. My family matters to me. My relationship with God matters to me. And I remember him asking me a question at the time, and he said, why do you not, in relationships, you have there's boundaries. Well, I don't know, speaking for myself. And I remember him asking, why don't you want to do this? And I remember telling him, well, I want to wait till marriage, or I want to, I'm just not that girl. And I remember him verbatim, he looked at me, he was like, you're a true sotia. Which means soldier, in English. But I remember him looking at me like, you're a true sotia. And he respected it. He respected my boundaries. He didn't pressure me. He didn't push me, um, which is a lot of people would probably not assume of him, especially how he was at that time. But he really was. And so that is what really made me fall head over heels with him, because the way he loved my family and the way he respected me. So yeah.
Yeah, that's funny. Ben telling you that you're a true sotia, because, that was also like with Yaki when we were dating, and just telling him, because raising up in the ministry, and telling him, like, waiting till marriage to whatever, and he, instead of calling me a true sotia,
Waiting to marriage to know each other biblically.
yeah, exactly. Instead of him calling me a true sotia, my name was Unicorn, so he called me a unicorn because they're so rare.
Yeah. I remember that. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's what made me lock in.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
So how, I want to ask you guys, how did you know that your boyfriend was the one, that Deaki was the one?
I just knew, like I said, because he made me feel like he was home. Like when I was with him, I felt at home. I felt safe. I felt I could share anything with this man and know that he's gonna love me and respect me. And there was just traits that I seen in him that my father also had, that I truly admired, and that just made me fall in love with him even more. And I just knew, I was like, this is the guy I'm gonna marry, because my the other friends that I had, they just weren't, we didn't have that relationship. Like, they didn't make me feel at home, or anything. It's just me like, hey, but yeah, Jackie, he made me, like, I knew, I was like, you're my guy. Yeah.
I knew that Gia was the one because I never felt any way. The way that I was feeling, I had never felt that way for anybody else. I think it was also the mystery of him that really lured me in. Because, I always like being in the known, but I entered into the unknown when I met Gia. But just the way that I felt being with him, being around him, talking to him, being able to have a deep conversation or some type of conversation with, what's that word? When he has
Substance.
yes, a
Depth.
conversation with depth or substance. That's when I knew that he was the one. And just the way that I could just be my true self around him. Um I I just quickly fell head over heels. Plus he's a smooth talking kind of guy. So, all those phone calls at night of just conversing, yes, I just fell head over heels. And again, like I mentioned, I never felt the way that I was feeling with Gia, I've never felt ever for anybody else. My parents said it's because I actually got to date. I was like, no. Before we even got to go out and, really hang out and stuff, I already fell head over heels for him. But I kept fighting it.
Yeah.
Yes.
What about you, Anna?
So like I said, we
Well,
had
you knew from
we had yeah, I knew from the
First
get.
sight.
I knew from the get. But just getting to know him, and because of all those times, many, many nights that we spent on the porch talking and really getting to know someone, and him just being my best friend, when we were 16, 15 years old, just being best friends and being together, and getting to know each other, and just seeing the way that he cared about me, genuinely caring about me, and just feeling that through his actions, not even his words, because Ben is a man of few words. Okay, he doesn't waste time talking if he doesn't have to. But just just feeling, just it's so cliche to say, when you know, you know.
Yeah.
But when you know, you know. There is no doubt. There's no doubt in my mind. I couldn't see life without him. I think when that started, when that began, when that thought process began, that man, I can't see my life without you. If anything, I see my life with you. I see myself growing old with you. I see us having children. I see us doing life together, and seeing it already here and really visualizing that. I knew that that was the one. And when I knew that was the one, that's why I got married young, because I didn't want to wait. I didn't want to wait. So that's exactly how I knew that's the one. I want his last name. I want his children. I want everything that he wants. You know, the whole in love thing, just being in love and falling in love. One thing that I will say is that when you're in love with somebody and you think like this is the top, this is the highest. Being married and doing life together, it's just like the Brad Paisley song, and I thought I loved you then. Now, now you're my whole world, whole life, everything. It is so true. I mean, that love just tenfold.
Same with me and Tiaki. I could picture myself having a family with him.
Yes. And I remember whenever Ben and I made the decision that, you know what, this is a forever thing. I remember that, I mean, when I say Ben did everything because just how much he cared for me and knew that I wanted like this. I mean, to the point that he said, okay, he was going to talk to my dad and tell my dad, this is what I want to do. I want to get married to your daughter. We want to get married. And so, so he did that. But that was when I was like, you know what? Yeah. Anna loves Ben forever and ever. The little notes, Anna loves Ben. Little did I know when I was writing those things over and over that that's a forever thing right there. Manifestation. Okay, not Delulu. Manifestation.
Maybe a little Delulu, but
No, you're the Lulu is over there with the muscles, okay? So yes, that was when we knew that they were the one. Now, did you guys have smooth sailing during your relationship, during your courtship? No arguments.
Of course not. There's always going to be arguments.
oh yeah, that's for sure. Yeah.
We definitely had arguments here and there, but that's why I think it's so important that you don't look to social media for answers or think that, you know, if this is your person, this is your person. Just work it through. And so that's something that I had to learn in this new relationship, because prior I'll just be like, okay, we're done. With Gia, it was like I would come to him and be like, we're done. And he's like, what do you mean we're done? You're not breaking up with me. And we'll just work it out, because it's not that big of it. I mean, it's not like that life shattering to just end a relationship.
Right. And I think that right, like we said, of course, when you're, you know, in your courtship, in your relationship, in your dating life with the person that you're with, that you love, that you care about greatly, of course you're going to have disagreements here and there, and you're going to have things that you don't see eye to eye on. But that's why it's so important to find someone that you're dating, someone that you see you're forever with, that you're getting to know them, and that you can that somebody that's worth fighting for. So that way when you're arguing, you're not fighting each other, that you still that your fight for each other is bigger than your fight with each other. So that's the thing that I think is always going to bring you back, you know, balance you out, especially when you're having disagreements, is that this disagreement, me being right is not worth me losing you. You know? And so that's where that comes in. And that's how you keep going. Obviously there are things that, you know, that's a deal breaker. I'm not talking about deal breakers. You know, if that's where you gotta go, you gotta go. but I'm talking about just in life, just not getting, just because you don't agree, or you know, something, even like just not agreeing. But that's why it's so important to find someone that at the end of the day, that disagreement is not important to me like you are. So
thank you guys so much for tuning into this episode. We look forward to hearing what you guys want to talk about.
Questions. If you guys have questions, even about the stories that we share, you have questions, you want to verify something, or you want to talk about something because it's about what you're going through right now in your life, then feel free. Feel free. We'll be happy to answer. We really are an open book. So if you have anything specific, drop it down in the comments below. Hit us up on Instagram on Anna Said Pod. Or even if you know us personally and you want to send a DM, Snapchat, Facebook. Not on MySpace. I'm not on MySpace anymore. But yes, go ahead and let us know.
Thank you guys so much for tuning into this episode of
What Anna Said podcast.
Bye.